You might say, well, does that mean that Vatican II says that there is no Catholic Church? No, that's not what it says. But the problem is this: it says that all religions lead to salvation, and therefore there is no need for a one Catholic Church. It says the church is kind of like this, that's what Father Zepeda used to call the Franken Church. It's this conglomeration of people that are mixed in every single religion everywhere, and that's like almost an unseen entity that is floating around somewhere. And so the moment that you attack the idea of the Catholic Church, you attack the Catholic Church. Now, how can you prove this? That's what we were telling that guy. If you call your Vatican II bishop and you ask him, Your Excellency, if they call him that, can you be saved in other religions? He will most likely say yes. So can I be a Buddhist and a Hindu and be saved? Yes. If he says no, which I would assume that some guys might actually say, no, you have to be Catholic. You ask him, can you put that in writing for me? Can you put that in writing for me in a letter with your stamp so I can show to people that my bishop in whatever, Savannah, or whatever, says that? For sure he's going to say no, because he knows that he's going to lose his position the moment that they say that. I insist on this then. That is the thing that no one can argue. If you talk to someone about Vatican II, don't go into all the heresies that they have said here and there loosely, because those have been said loosely, and they're not really a consistent teaching that they have. Some might say it, others might not. This one, everyone holds it, and that's ecumenism. Where do you find this in the documents of Vatican II? That's what I wanted to show you online, but I couldn't. And you guys who have been talking to me for a while, you know that I always go to this one. Nostra Aetate. Have you guys ever read that document from Vatican II?
I did. No, that was.
No, what?
From Vatican II.
From Vatican II. Yeah, but ask the bishop maybe before.
Yeah.
You have to preface like this is an error, this is an error, this is an error. Okay, let's read it now.
But it was talked about.
It's good to read, I would say, if you know that it's an error, obviously, and with a permission, I guess, because of how outrageous it is. You will not believe how outrageous it is. All the documents of Vatican II, many of them, are filled with quotes from the Holy Fathers and quotes from previous popes, and it's like I'm giving you a bunch of good stuff, a lot of hay, and then I just throw a rattlesnake in the middle. So it's going to bite you at some point. This one document is like a bunch of rattlesnakes and just a little bit of hay. And the other day I was actually rereading it, and I thought maybe at the end it kind of goes into more Catholic stuff. No, it just goes from the beginning to the end. The whole point of the document is to say false religions, good, keep them, conserve them, blah, 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 blah. To understand how monstrous that is, keep in mind that each false religion is leading souls to hell and is created by none other than Satan. That's how we should be addressing that. They're created by none other than the devil. So it's like I'm telling you, all these things that the devil made and that leads us to hell, keep them, conserve them, pass on the good things that the devil has given you. Some are good, so pass them on. It's just like that. So the document, literally what it says, I might be mistaken with Hinduism and Buddhism because I always mix them up, but it says something like, in Hinduism, men can reach perfect liberation. No. In Hinduism, men come in contact with the divine. Now, Hinduism doesn't even have one god. There's one branch that has Brahma and all that stuff, but most Hindus don't even have one god. It's like a whole bunch of deities. In Buddhism, you reach perfect liberation and supreme illumination, which is blasphemous because perfect liberation can only come from Christ. The truth will set you free. Supreme illumination can only come from Christ. I'm the light of the world. It says the Muslims worship the true God. 2 lines later, although they don't recognize Jesus Christ as God. When you're arguing with someone about Vatican II, this is again what we discussed, don't go into all the, this church does this church does, there's clown masses, there's all this. Just bring them this document, Nostra Aetate, and tell them, do you accept that? Do you subscribe to this? This is the teaching of your church. Do you say that there is supreme illumination in Buddhism, do you say that Hinduism leads to contact with the divine? Do you say that the Muslims worship the true God? They don't recognize the Trinity as God. They don't think of the Trinity. They worship Allah, whoever that is. It's a devil.
I'm glad you're mentioning that because we just had Muslims buy some sheep and cattle from our farm, and so I wanted to explain to the boys, why never trust a Muslim. He's like, oh, well, that's nice, and it's all like, never trust a Muslim. They all have the same mentality. They might act nice. It's an act, So yeah, I'm glad you're going into these details why they think their God is our God, but like you said, they don't even acknowledge Jesus Christ.
Quick story. I was talking to a Novus Ordo priest actually like 2 weeks ago, and he's the brother-in-law of one of my parishioners. So he's like, I'm gonna bring him to mass. He came to mass and then he's like, I want you to talk to him. And so here I am talking to this priest and the two, his sister and the brother-in-law. I'm like, do you want to talk in private? No, we're good. Okay, and I told them everything, and our age, which is kind of interesting, New World Order, New Age. But I was telling him this, and he's saying, oh, well, yeah, because, the Muslims, they're monotheists, as we are. Has nothing to do with it. But the poor guy had no answer. I mean, he was very devastated, actually. But this is what you stick to. And you just say, do you accept that? Do you accept that? Do you accept that? But, Francis didn't say this and that. Everyone holds Vatican II is a true council. Do you accept that council as true or not? Do you subscribe to that teaching or not? Well, no, that teaching is wrong. Then show me where in Catholic doctrine does it say that you as a Catholic can reject councils. No book wherever, and this is a good point for the SSPXers, there's no book, not one book anywhere that says that I as a Catholic can have a true council and say, well, that is not true. That doesn't exist. That's not Catholic. If it's a true council, you have to accept the whole of it. If it's not a true council, then you have to reject the whole of it. Yes?
Then what do you do when they come back, when the SSPX particularly comes back with, well, it was a pastoral council, it wasn't binding?
The documents of Vatican Council are called dogmatic
Right.
constitutions.
Right.
And not only that, they are signed by Paul VI with his papal authority. And that's the whole point of this thing that we mentioned up here. Mr. SSPX, there is such a thing as ordinary magisterium. And that is infallible. You have to accept it. I don't care if you tell me that it's pastoral or not, I don't care. That's part of their ordinary magisterium. So.
Would council, Vatican II council be extraordinary magisterium?
Actually, that's a good point. It would be extraordinary magisterium.
So then it has to be infallible.
It has to be.
Either way, it has to be infallible.
And again, I would point back and say, okay, you're telling me that. Show me one book, one Catholic book that says that there is such a thing as a council that doesn't bind. That there exists something in the church that is a council that doesn't bind the Catholics.
They might come up with something. They say that there have been bad councils. I just heard that recently. I don't know what bad councils.
If it's about council, then it's not a council.
Yeah, like Pistoia or something, which is
Yeah.
actually condemned.
Is there such thing as a pastoral council? Any sort of council that's just meant to guide, like how they say, like, oh, you can kind of take some things out of it.
There's no such thing as an ecumenical council that is not binding on Catholics. Yes.
And I wanted to ask what the SSPX usually says the definition of pastoral is. Because when we're calling it Vatican II, we said it would reflect the Church's magisterium was primarily pastoral in nature. They had one pastoral constitution mixed in with a dogmatic constitution of degrees. And then Montini talked about how there was a pastoral nature of the council. But no one ever said anything about it not being magisterial.
Mm-hmm.
They used Bergoglio's definition of pastoral to be ecumenical, or
That's a good point. And that's a very good point because, okay, you tell me that's pastoral. What does pastoral mean? Pastoral means I'm guiding you.
Right, it's for the shepherds.
So it's like saying, oh, it's a parental council because I'm your parent. Well, that means I have to follow you. That's the whole point of the word. Now, if you tell me it's a useless council, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. But if it's pastoral, then you're shepherd. How do you say that? Shepherding me?
yeah.
And that means I have to follow. So this, when it comes to the faith, this is what you need to look at. And this is shown, obviously, consistently all throughout Vatican II, all the time. It's from Paul VI all the way up to, I would think that Leo XIV is going to do exactly the same. Does that make sense? If you guys fall asleep, I'm gonna make you do push-ups.
So Father, you read, it's either Denzinger or Odd in the Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma. That I put that in front of this SSPX priest when he told me it was pastoral, and in that it says, anytime the pontiff and all of the bishops are together, that's an ecumenical council.
Yeah.
It's infallible.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the conversation got put off to another time, and I gotta go dig out my books, and I've gotta go out of town. I'll be back to you. But
That's a very interesting point too. The documents of Vatican II are in the Denzinger. In the new definition, in the new editions of the Denzinger,
Yes.
they put them in the book, and that means that they're considering that as magisterium. And here's another thing. Well, I have to say that just going really quickly into that, the whole ex cathedra thing. The SSPX is very mischievous with the mischievous. No, what's the word? Deceiving.
I would say.
Deceiving with the whole ex cathedra, because that again, it is very clear that the conditions for something to be ex cathedra are these: the Pope has to speak in matters of faith and morals with the intention of binding the whole of the Church and using his supreme authority. Those are the 3 points. Let me put them up here, just as a quick note. I'm gonna ask you guys, and if you don't get the answer right, I'm gonna make you go into the pond. That's what you'll do.
go bobbing for fish.
Yeah, you have to catch a turtle, a snapping turtle with your hands. So
Speaking of snakes, you'll find some snakes in there too.
Yeah, water box. The water box in
They're-
here.
My kids aren't afraid of snapping turtles or water bugs.
Oh,
He's got his finger in the mouth of one and it cuts sticks. I
I
would.
almost lost a finger with a turtle once. I was just trying to get the hook out.
Oh,
prematurely. So, and another thing that is important about the ex cathedra thing, because the SSPX will come with that, they'll say, well, Paul VI didn't have an interior intention to bind. And that's not what it matters. What matters is the wording that he's using and the context that he's using. But so this, and I actually don't take my word for it. I have a study from the, it's like a Congress of American Theologians. They used to make like a little magazine that whenever they would gather, and they made a study on this, and they say that they said, as cathedral definitions can happen even in a consistorium, even when the Pope is speaking, as long as there is these 3 conditions. He's talking about faith and morals. He has intention to bind, and he makes it clear that he's using the supreme authority. Does that make sense? Okay. When it comes to the faith, then, in spite of all the heresies that come, this is the one that we argue about. This is enough. You don't need any more. And yes.
I'm sorry, but the irony in all that you say is ask the Novus Ordo bishop, and he accepts all those others, and then say, well, that's great. Can I go to Bishop Peverunas and be a Sede Vacantis, right? We still can get to heaven doing the things that the church did many years before. And yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's the one thing you can do.
It's heretical.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
And here's something we just found out actually with Andrew is like my new canonical test, examinator or something, because he's like,
Yeah.
Father, how do you answer this and this and this and this? And I'm like driving, trying to dodge here and fighting Indians in South Dakota. It's like, whoa, hold on. And this is one that actually I just noticed in the Code of Canon Law, where it says where it gives permission for the priest to give communion to Protestants with certain caveats. Above that, it says Catholics are allowed to go to places that are not in union with the Catholic Church as long as it's for their spiritual growth. Which, okay, how does that work? But we're not in union with the Catholic Church, so they can come with us. It's in their canon law, right there in the Code of Canon Law. We can actually come and say, hey, John Paul II said this, you can come over. Yes, Which, don't do that because it would put me in trouble when giving communion. But so does that make sense with the faith? That's all you need. One article that's broken, that's enough. And here's what I was going to say, very important. Every pope that comes has to accept Vatican II. Every bishop that receives his see has to accept Vatican II. At the moment that they accept that, they become heretics. It's a document in writing with heresy. If I say I accept it, I become a heretic.